Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Lamed Aleph, and we have a great sort of self-contained, well, not self-contained, but anyway, a great discussion that'll cover this whole daf, get up to the mission on the next daf. And this is a continuation of the earlier issues about a person who trips and people get damaged by him or get damaged by something that he breaks. And we're going to actually have the case of a multi-car backup. Multi-car collision. Okay, one car gets into an accident with another car, and then another with the second, and the third with the fourth, and so on. And then it'll lead to these whole questions about exactly who is liable. But the other question that it also gets to is, right, the degree of negligence in terms of tripping, and also creating when you damage other people, automatic versus war. So a lot of very sort of like interesting issues we've been discussing coming in application in this particular case. So let's take a look at this Mishnah. Top of Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Shnei Kadarim. Shayu Mahalchim Zechar Zeh. So two what's even the word? Potters, thank you, that were walking one behind the other. And the first one tripped and fell. And so that's, the whole discussion about nitka poshea or not poshea or so on. I think this is the first time that the Mishnah uses the word nitkal, right? Beforehand it spoke about the pot breaking and so on. Here finally it describes the act of tripping. The first one tripped and fell down. The nitkal hasheni b'rishon, and the second one tripped over the first one. Harishon chay b'niskei sheni. The first guy is liable for the damages to the second. Okay, so this is clear, simple sense. Presumably he's negligent, or actually, as we've been pointing out, the Mishnayos until now have been a little frustrating because they do not really. They talk about different scenarios, about a picture breaking, about somebody. What were the other scenarios? Somebody intentionally spilling the water, and so on. Anyway, the common theme is that the guy who created the hazard is always liable, but it never exactly tells you what the degree of negligence is that's required. But the Gemara has been asserting that that it's not a total onus. Why should you be chayav if you're an onus? If you made a bore, you need a certain degree of negligence. It's always been assuming in the Mishnayot that there is negligence. Here you have the guy tripping. So presumably that's telling you that tripping has that minimum degree of negligence required. So let's take a look at what the Gemara says. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Lo tema masnisin Rabbi Meir, the Amar nitka posheahu. Don't say our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, who says that one who trips is negligent, right? That's going back to that earlier Mishnah about the picture that breaks, that the Gemara, that Rabbi Meir says you're chayav, and Rabbi Yehuda says only if you're intentional. And the classic way the Gemara framed that debate was whether tripping is poshea, although that wasn't about tripping, that was about a picture that broke. But anyway, here you see why we're framing it as tripping, because this Mishnah is about tripping. So don't think that our Mishnah is presuming the position of Rabbi Meir that tripping is negligent. That would seem to be the right assumption of this Mishnah. That's why the first guy is chayav. Ella afilu rabbanan dami anasu. Even the rabbis that say that somebody who trips over his own 2 feet is considered to be an anus, or at least not a poshea, upater, and normally you'd be exempt if you tripped and broke a pot and the pot created a hazard. Here you're going to be chayav. Hacha chayav. Why are you chayav? Shahayalo la'amod v'lo amad, because you should have stood up and you didn't stand up. So this is just like a trip ba'onus, and you don't pick up. You have time to pick up your broken pot, and you don't pick it up. So we said there that you'd be chayav. The only because you are supposed to remove it and pick up your pot, even if the pot broke ba'onus. The only possible exception would be is if you were mafkir the pot after it broke. So then it's not your responsibility. But if after you trip, you're not being mafkir yourself, okay? you still are always responsible for yourself, even if you trip. So once you have a chance to get up and you don't get up, that's where the liability occurs, okay? Yes.
Or because you're a bore?
Excellent. So that was the question I was going to raise. That is going to be a central question in the discussion, right? Here's the issue. We said that, let's say you don't need any negligence. If a wind were to push me on top of you, on top of your pot, or whatever, your picture, and I broke it, I'd be chayav. Okay? But here, I am stationary. You are tripping on me. And you are maybe even breaking your pot, even if it broke directly on my body, on my person. Is that an act of Adam Hamazik, because it was broke on my body? Or is that an act of bore? Because ultimately, it was not me impacting your picture, but your picture impacting me. And that is a really key question about whether you view this case of me being an obstacle and tripping and breaking something on me. Is that an Adam Hamazik or is that a bore? If it's a bore, you understand why you need negligence. Why do you say Hayalo Lamad Lamod V'lo Amad? But if it's an Adam Hamazik, you don't understand why you should need negligence. At the end of the day, I broke my picture on you, right? Adam is more la'olam. So this would seem to indicate either that case of me tripping over a person, the person is a bore, or the position of Tosfos that even Adam Hamazik requires a certain degree of negligence. Now, I can just tell you parenthetically, not to complicate it, but there's a way that you can make it Adam Hamazik, even according to the Ramban, that you don't need negligence, and say here you have to say that I should have stood. Because it is combining the idea of the negligence with defining it as an action. Meaning, if I am stationary, it's sort of like, this is exactly the thing that's going to determine am I a bore or not a Hamazik. If I'm stationary, and I had no opportunity yet to stand, and you tripped on me, then I'm a bore. It's not my act at all. You did something against my body, I'm a bore. But as soon as I could have stood and I didn't stand, that inserts the aspect of agency. Right? You understand? That means that I am essentially choosing to remain here. And as soon as you insert agency and I'm choosing to remain here, and then you break something on me, then it's like I broke the thing because I made that choice. So either if, in terms of the physics of the thing, I fell and broke something, even though I didn't make a choice, a wind pushed me over, that's an Adam Hamazik. But if the physics is that you broke it on me, we can still turn it into an Adam Hamazik because I made the choice to be. That makes it like I did something. So it's a fascinating three actual different ways of defining what the scenario is. Either you just say it's always bore, physically I'm being passive, and that's why you need negligence. Or you say it's always Adam Hamazik because my body came in contact with it, and this shows that Adam Hamazik needs a certain degree of negligence. Or you say whether it's bore or Adam Hamazik is a function of whether I was making a choice or not. Okay, if I was stationary and not making a choice, I'm a bore. But if I was stationary and choosing to be here, then I'm like actively being here. Then I'm an Adam Hamazik. Yes.
In practical terms, is there going to be a difficulty determining the timing of?
Yeah. Well, sure.
You
I mean, who's the one that's going to determine it? Now we're going to have some rule of thumb. 10 seconds, 1 minute,
right.
And then who's going to assess? Well, that's your rule of thumb. These cases were different because of this and that. Right? There's always the question that the Gemara tends to ignore, which is the determining of the facts. Right? You know, half of any legal case is always not the law, question of the law, but the determining of the facts. Right? So that's a very good question.
So does it make any difference at all to this case if the second one damaged the first one too?
We're going to get to that. I mean, we're not going to get to that yet exactly, but we're going to get to something similar about the second one damaging the third. Okay, but I mean, if the second also tripped and damaged the second, then that wouldn't affect the first one's liability, but that would be looked through as his own lens, as the second guy's Adam Hamazik. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Okay. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Kamma, afilu tema lo haya lamod, even if you didn't have a time to stand up. Haylo here, below he's here. Your liability comes that you should have warned the guy. Watch out! I'm on the ground. Okay, so everybody agrees that you need a certain degree of negligence. Okay, again, because it's born, you need negligence, or because Adam Hamazik needs negligence, or you can need the negligence to turn him into an Adam Hamazik, whatever the case is. But they're saying you don't need the negligence in the tripping. The negligence could come in the not standing, or the negligence could come in the not warning. Okay,
but it could be a separate amount of time because it takes longer.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Rabbi Yochanan number no. Since he did not have either the ability or the time, presumably the time to stand, lo hayelo here. You cannot say that you should have warned Tatarim. He is distracted. Right? He is preoccupied. Here he is. He's fallen down. It's like, oh, my knee, whatever. So how are you going to say, oh, while you're, in pain about your knee, how much do we make you responsible to be warning the guy who's coming? And how much, if you're trying to get up, as I'm trying to get myself together to stand up, do I have to also be aware that somebody might be coming behind me and warning? Right? So that's a very interesting question, right? Like, how much are we reasonable and say that when you're in pain or you fell or whatever, you're entitled to be focused, or it's natural to be focused on taking care of yourself, and we can't impose on you a responsibility to be concerned about others? Or do we say, no, you always have to be concerned about other people that might get damaged by you? So that's a really interesting question. So that's the debate of, right, if you didn't yet have time to stand up, you still have time. Are you still responsible to warning others during those circumstances? Okay, so now the Gemara says, Tanakh. Let's take a look. So the Mishnah says, not this Mishnah, but the Mishnah we're about to come up to. Hayabal Korer Rishon, Abal Chavit Acharo. So the guy with the beam, is walking in front of a guy with a barrel. Okay, so if a beam, you ever play rock, paper, scissors? Okay, so rock always beats scissors. Okay, so the beam always beats the barrel. The guy with the beam is walking in front of the guy with the barrel. Okay, Haya Bal Korer Rishon. So the guy, he's first. The guy with the barrel of the picture is behind him. Nishbar Chavis B'Korah. So the guy with the barrel of the picture went too fast and sped up and banged his picture into the guy's beam. So putter. So of course the guy with the beam is exempt. Like, you did it to yourself. Amad, but if he stood, Bal Korah Chaya. The guy with the beam is Chaya because he is the one that was negligent. Everybody is walking, and like if you stop in the middle of the highway, right, then you're to blame. You have to keep on going. That's the rules of the road.
That's secular law.
But if you stop in the middle of the highway and somebody crashes into you, they're liable.
The person behind is generally liable.
Everybody's going 60 miles an hour. You stop. You're liable.
If you stop for a good reason, yeah. No, if you
stop in the middle of the highway.
If you have a good reason, the guy behind is supposed to be in control of his car.
There's supposed to be enough stopping.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So he's just assuming. It's a good question. But also, I wonder whether this is with the question about visibility. Here I am, I'm carrying a barrel or whatever. What's the presume? What can we presume about the visibility?
Yeah.
All right, those are good questions. We'll discuss that more when we get to the next mission tomorrow. Okay. Now, by the way, the other point I should make that Tosfos makes is that this shows you that I could be stationary in an Adam Hamazik. Why? Because if I stop and if you consider me to be a bore, so then I'm exempt if you break your picture on, right? Because a bore is putter and cave. So maybe because it's my beam, it's not me. But anyway, okay, so this already starts, and I did an act of stopping. Anyway, but here at least you have.
Why are you?
Because you're not, because presumably you're out of a mask.
Yeah.
Okay, or you could say, maybe you want to say the beam is whatever. But this is a key question that runs through this, whether a stopped person is a bore or not a hamazik. Okay, anyway, so it says, Amad Bala Korah Chayav. If you stop, then you're liable. My love. Now, what we're going to focus on is about your liability. Actually, this is exactly the question. Did you have a right to stop? And if you did have a right to stop, and the guy should be anticipating you might stop, why are you liable? Okay, it's actually very similar to the point that Charlie just made. So the Gemara says, my love, are we not talking? Shamad l'katev, that you actually stop in order to switch your shoulders, to adjust it on your shoulder, which is a normal thing that people do. Okay, the orchedu, it's a normal thing. So the guy behind you should have maybe anticipated that might have happened. So then why are you liable? Viktani chayav. Why are you liable? The have leila is here. That made, because we would say, even if the guy behind you should to some degree be paying attention, okay, you nevertheless have a greater responsibility to warn. It always depends on who do we put the primary responsibility on. So if we say, yes, you're allowed to stop to adjust, but when you're doing that, thank you, you have to be you have to be where people might behind you, and you don't have to yell out a warning. Okay, so that type of a case, so that would explain why you'd be chayav. That even though it's a normal thing to do, you still have that responsibility, and that would show you, presumably, the Gemara is making an analogy. That presumably, if we say that while you're switching the shoulder of your beam by adjusting it on your shoulder, you still have to be, and you're focused on your own sort of issue, you still have to be paying attention to what's going on around you and warn people. So by analogy, even after you fell down and you're focused on standing up, you would still have to be warning people around you. Now, I think there's a little bit of a difference. In one case, it's an accident. I'm overwhelmed, right? I got to actually whatever. So there, but nevertheless, the Gemara is making that analogy. You either need to warn somebody by adjusting their load. When you're adjusting the load, you should be warning somebody while you're trying to stand up. So the Gemara says, my love, shaylo lahaz, your load. Kashamud lafush. I'm sorry. No, he was not just standing to adjust. He actually stood to take a break. It's like there I was. You said if I have a good reason to stop in the middle of the highway. Okay, I just stopped in the middle of the highway because I just needed to check my emails. Okay, so that's why I did it. If you want to take a break, you pull over to the shoulder. Okay, so if you're just doing it for a completely not justifiable reason, and you're doing something that is not expected and not normally allowed or whatever, then you're liable even if you don't have an opportunity to warn people. You're fundamentally liable for making that choice of stopping in the middle of the highway. No.
But then let's say the other guy damages you. That's the other question. Is he liable?
Absolutely not. She has haniza. Kol mishana bacher v'shinabo pater. Okay, so it says so. No, kashamud lafush. So the Gemara says like this. Amud lekatef ma. So what now? By the way, though, and here I'm surprised you didn't ask this, Charlie. Tosha says I don't get it. If you're the guy driving behind him, and we're saying that you're responsible, that people will often stop in the middle of the road to adjust their beam, and therefore you have to be on the lookout, and therefore you're going to be liable if somebody does that because you have to be being aware that might happen and be prepared to adjust yourself accordingly. So Tosha says, well then, at the end of the day, what difference does it make why he stopped? I'm supposed to be anticipating that he might stop. So even if he stopped for a not good reason, I should be responsible to avoid him. So those give some answer, but I just want, but the question, you can look at it. The question I think is a little more interesting than the answer. The answer I think could be is that there's always like different degrees of liability. That's true. In general, we say you should be watching out. And should you have anticipated that he stopped and adjusted because it doesn't matter, he winds up? Yes, but his liability is still greater because he had no right to be stopping without a legitimate reason. So, it's not denying that you maybe also should have been anticipating and adjusting, but if fundamentally he had no right to stop in the middle of the highway, then he is liable.
I could also differentiate between how suddenly he stopped.
Well, that's true also.
Which no one brings up.
There's a lot of factors here. Okay, so the Gemara says anyway, so it says, nope, he stopped without any good reason. He stopped just to take a break. You don't take a break in the middle of the highway. You move off to the side, and that's why you're liable. But if he stopped to adjust his load, we do not say that he should at that time be warning people. So the Gemara says, so what would you say if he stood to just adjust his load? Potter, he'd be exempt because he doesn't have to warn people while he's doing that because that's it's not reasonable to expect that of him. If that's true, at the Tani Seifa, the end of the Mishnah teaches, if he says to the guy with the picture behind him, stand, stop, I just stopped, you stop. Like he warns the guy, it explicitly says if he warns the guy, he's exempt. Livlog the listening day. Why not make a distinction in the case itself? When are you chayav? When you stop to just take a break, a breather. But if you stop to adjust, patur, you're exempt even if you didn't warn the guy. Like that's a bigger chiddush. That you can stop and it's not such a chiddush to say that if you warn the guy you're exempt. It's a bigger chiddush to say that you're exempt if you are just adjusting your load. So Gemara says, no, it's still a chiddush this way. Hakamash Milan, Davagav Damad Lafush, even if you stood to take a break, you satisfy your responsibility when you tell the guy to stop. You might think it is such a violation to just stop in the middle of the highway, right? I'm just imagining this, right? Everybody's going 60 miles an hour. You're stopping in the middle lane to check your emails. I'm just stopping to take a break. I need to check my email. Oh, but I said, I don't know, I put on my hazard. I put on my blinkers. So no, maybe that is such a violation and so irresponsible that even if you warn the guy, you're going to be liable. Kamash Milan that you're not. Okay, so this is like a really interesting question. Like I appreciate that because I would have, that's sort of parallel to the contemporary issues. If you're stopping, how much is that considered to be acceptable? Do you have a right to do that? Something to be anticipated, etc. And when you are doing, or if it's something completely you shouldn't be doing, then obviously you have more absolute liability. But how much also when you are taking care of something that's reasonable to do, like getting yourself up from having fallen down or adjusting your load, which is what people do, how much at that time can we obligate you to be warning people behind you? And if we can be obligating you and you're not, you're liable, but it's not reasonable to ask you to be paying attention to other people at that time, then you will be exempt. So Okay, either you'll be an anus, in our case of the Mishnah, you fell down, you're an anus, or it'll be something that becomes their responsibility to watch out for. If people have a right to adjust their load and they're not expected to warn people, then that creates a greater responsibility for me, who is walking behind people, to know that this type of a thing might happen, and for me to be careful, and for me to be on the lookout. Yes.
This our Mishnah that says the Rishon Chayav Nizkishin is only according to that opinion says Fishin Darkan Shalvan Yadam B'nei Brachim, but the other people that before made it like, oh, Afela, whatever it is, that wouldn't work too well with them.
No, because that's exactly what Kamma, the first line of the Gemara. First of all, here the phrase we use is Nit Kapur Sheya. Ain't Darkan Shalvan Yadam B'nei Brachim is when you actually trip over something. When you trip over your own 2 feet, that's a discussion of Nitkal. Okay, but this is exactly what the Gemara said. Even if you're tripping as an anus, your liability is because you should have gotten up, or assuming that you have the time to get up, or your liability is you should have warned, and that's the debate. Are you liable if you didn't have the time to get up and you had the time to warn somebody? So that's exactly what we're saying. It doesn't matter why you fell. That's exactly the first line of the Gemara. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Tashma, come in here. Hakadarim v'hazagagim, so the potters and the glass blowers, or the glass sellers, okay, shayu mahalchin zechar zeh. We're walking one behind the other. Nitkal harishon v'nafal. The first guy tripped and fell down. V'nitkal harisheni barishon. Here you get your multi-car pileup. Okay, the second guy tripped over the first guy. V'ashlishi b'sheni. And the third guy tripped over the second guy. Rishon chay b'niskei sheni. V'sheni chay b'niskei shlishi. First one is liable for the second is liable for the third. So because why is the second liable for the third? Right? He was honest. He could have whatever. So we'll see if he actually had a opportunity to warn. Right? If he didn't, it was happened immediately, he'd be punished. But if he had an opportunity to get up, or he had an opportunity to warn, or whatever, but that's not being spelled out in this. This breakdown says second guy is liable for the third guy. Okay? If they all fell because of the first guy, directly because of the first guy, okay, the Gemara is going to say what that means is the first guy, let's say, is carrying a beam, and he falls, and his beam goes across the whole road. So then everybody who comes after him, 2, 3, 4, they don't trip over the guy before them. They all trip over the same beam. Okay? So if everybody behind him directly trips over the first guy, okay, or the first guy's beam or whatever it might be, then Chayav b'niskei kulam, he is liable for all of them. By the way, that's the way the Gemara is going to interpret it. You could have said what it means is it's because of the first means that the second and the third guy did not have a chance to get up or warn. So if they, right, I mean, what would be the story there in terms of just civil liability? One guy is negligent and crashes his car, and then 2 crashes into 1 and 3 into 2, whatever. Is one liable for everybody's?
No, I think because each one is presumed to, have enough distance to be able to.
Oh, that gets back to Charlie's point about that you should have had stopping distance or whatever.
Right.
Oh, that complicates it, right? Okay.
So how's the Gemara?
All right. So anyway, but what you could have said, we haven't. The Gemara hasn't done anything yet. It's over. We're in the price. What you could have said was it meant that if guy 2 could have warned or stood up, he's liable for guy 3. But if there was no opportunity, it happened too quickly, then it's all number 1's fault. Okay, but that's not how the Gemara is going to say. The Gemara is going to say that last line where the number 1 is to be liable for everyone. It's when they all directly tripped over number 1.
Then what's this called a shlishi b'sheni then? It's not true.
Well, no, they're describing a different scenario. I understand. That's what I said. An easier read of it's all because of the first guy means that he's to blame, but because the other people didn't yet have a chance to do anything about it. Okay, but we're not going to focus on that last case, although that is, I think, equally interesting. Okay, we're first going to focus on the first case where 1 is liable for 2, 2 for 3, etc., and try and understand why that's going to be. Okay, so 1 minute. Okay. But if 2 said to 3, stop, or 1 said to 2, stop, I'm here, then they're exempt. So that seems to point to that the reason they're liable for the guy behind them is because they had an option to warn. Okay, so because they could have warned, they're liable, and if they did warn, they're exempt. Okay, so this would seem to indicate that we say that you are considered responsible to warn. You didn't have a chance to get up, and you're in the process of getting up. Nevertheless, you should be warning the guy behind you. Okay, so it says, where were we? Okay, my love, are we not talking about a case that they didn't yet have a chance to stand? And the liability comes because even though they didn't have a chance yet to stand up, they should have been warning, which is why the end of it talks about warning. Well, no, the reason they're liable is because they had a chance to stand up. So the Gemara
And
says,
was it the
so the Gemara says, so if they didn't have a chance to stand up, you'd say you'd be exempt, even though you could have warned. If that's true, the Tani safe and he's here at that patur. Well, the end of it says if they warned, they're exempt, right? So that it should have said, live the listen to today. It should have made a distinction within the case of having time to stand up. When are they liable if they could have stood up? If they didn't have time to stand up, they're exempt, even if they could have warned and they didn't warn. That would be a big chiddush. So the Gemara says no. How Kamashmalan, this is telling you, the Highland Lamod, even though they could have stood up and effectively removed the entire hazard, and they didn't stand up, they're nevertheless exempt if they warned, right? You could have thought, if you could have more removed yourself completely, and you were taking your sweet time, and you just warned somebody, that's not good enough, right? Maybe if you had the time to remove yourself, you had to remove yourself. I tell you, not warning does suffice. So although
then you can check your emails while you're down.
And you can check your emails. No, that's right. So, well, I don't know. Maybe if you're warning people, once you're warning them and sending out a regular warning, maybe you can check your emails. Okay. So, So anyway, you get your laptop to start proclaiming, broadcasting a warning. Okay. Anyway, so what it's saying is, although the brightness sounds like the issue is, did you have a chance to warn? And that presumably, even when you're down, you'll be liable if you had a chance to warn. The Gemara is trying to defend Rabbi Yochanan's position and say, no, there is no liability until you had the opportunity to stand. While you're in the process, while you don't have as much time as you want, but while you are in the process, while you're working on standing, okay, then you do not have a responsibility to warn people. But even if you're taking more time than you should, warning suffices. It's enough to warn people, but don't begin to be liable until you've had a chance to get up. That's at least Rabbi Yochanan. The other approach, which I think obviously reads simpler, is the approach that you're liable just because you could have warned, even if you didn't have a chance to stand. Okay, so that's one whole debate. If you could have warned the person behind you, and among that we have introduced this idea of multi-car pileup, and this question about, did I have a right to stop in the first place? If I didn't have a right to stop in the first place, that creates greater liability. Really, really fascinating. Now, and behind this, in the background, is this idea that you need liability, right? We're not saying Adam Olam, and we've put out there three possibilities. Either you're a bore when somebody trips on you, and that's why you need liability, or you're an Adam Amazik, and even an Adam Amazik needs liability, and liability is the wrong word, needs negligence, or that your negligence makes you into an Adam Amazik. But anyway, what's clear is that when somebody trips on you, you're only going to be liable with a certain degree of negligence. Okay, that's presumed about this. Now we're going to spend the rest of the daf, and there's a huge Tosfos, and if you flip the daf, you'll see there's a huge Rashi, and basically Rashi and Tosfos, 80% of Tosfos is just more or less quoting Rashi, okay, and all it's really doing is trying to explain the case that the Gemara is going to be dealing with. Okay, and just to show you a little bit, if you look at the Amud Bet, look at the left margin of the Amud Bet, the far left margin, it says, Ayin berif ubeharash ubalamur ubilmuchamos. That's four different Rishonim. You don't see the far right, I don't know, in your daf. But so Shas, it says, Perushim Acherim. So go look at these four Rishonim for four completely different explanations of what the Gemara is talking about. Okay, so we're about to have a little bit of fun in the following cases in the Gemara. Let's take a look. The Gemara says the following. Okay, what? You got it. All right. Anyway, back to the Gemara. Okay. Where are we? Okay. I'm a Rava. Rishon Chayev B'Niskei Shein. In this case, one trips and two trips on one, and two trips on two. The first guy is Chayev in the damages of the second guy, bein b'nizkei gufo, bein b'nizkei mamono. Whether it's about the damages of the body or the damages of the property. Okay, so here is the first big question the Rishonim have. What do we mean? What does that mean? Whether damage of money or damage of property. What does he mean?
Like he ripped his clothing versus he broke his leg.
Whether guy number one broke guy number two's property or broke guy number two's person, bled. Okay, what's another possible read, Charlie?
It is guy number one's body doing the damage, or guy number one's
whether the guy number one's body damaged guy number two, or whether guy number one's property damaged guy number two. Okay, that's the first completely big sort of question mark about how to even parse the words of the Gemara.
Meaning it's Gufa going on number 2 and number 1, basically.
Right. We are going to read this like Rashi. Okay. Rashi has a very nice, although Rashi also changes the gears of the Gemara to be consistent with his interpretation. But in terms of the printed text that we have, Rashi has a very smooth read of the Gemara. So here's what Rashi is saying: is whether guy's number one's person or property damages guy number 2. Now the difference is this focuses us in on is a person who is stationary and somebody tripping over him a bor or an adam hamazik. So the difference is if my body damages guy number 2, I am an adam hamazik. If my property damages guy number 2, the pot that I was carrying that broke, and that guy damages guy number 2, that's a bor because that's my property. Okay, so let's read it.
Why wouldn't you read it the other way?
Because it doesn't continue to read throughout the Gemara. If it does, it raises issues. You can read Tosfos. Tosfos gives you both reads of the Gemara. And you can read the Rif and the Ramban and the Balmor and the Rosh for 3 other explanations. Okay, so Rishon Chayav B'nizkei Sheni. The first guy is liable for the damage to the second. Bein B'nizkei Gufa, Bein B'nizkei Mamona. Whether his body damaged guy number 2 or his property damaged guy number 2. Sheni Chayav B'nizkei Shlishi. 2 is liable for guy number 3. B'nizkei Gufo, if his body damaged guy number 3. Of a low B'nizkei Mamono, but not if his property damaged guy number 3. So let's see why not. Manushach, make up your mind, says the Gemara. If the guy who tripped is negligent, so let this guy number 2 be liable fully for a damage to guy number 3. Of course, the funny thing is right here, if guy number 1 was negligent, it doesn't mean guy number 2 was negligent. You might be negligent for tripping over your own 2 feet. You're not negligent for tripping over the guy that just fell down in front of you. Okay, doesn't matter. Anyway, we're not going to stick with that. But the point is, if the second guy had negligence, let him be chayav, whether it's his body or his property that damages guy number 3. And if guy number 2 didn't have negligence, or nobody who trips has negligence, that guy number 1 be exempt. Which the better question is, what is the reason that guy number 1 is liable for his person and his property, and guy number 2 is only liable for his person and not his property? That's basically the question. Let's see what the answer is. So the Gemara says, Rishon Zarei Posheya. Guy number 1 is negligent. You trip over your own 2 feet, Nitka Posheya. Okay, Sheni, the guy number 2, Agufu Mechayev, you're chayev for your own person when somebody damages themselves on your person. The hayalo lamod v'lo amad. You should have stood up. Okay, like we've been saying. A mamono putter, you're exempt, guy number 2, if your property damages guy number 3, the amarle, because he could say to guy number 3, Habira lavani karitia. I didn't dig this well, my pot, right? That happened, but honest. What does that mean? It means the following. I think we really need some pictures now. Okay? Waiting for this. Okay. Guy number 1 falls down, and here's his broken pot. Here's his property. Okay, whoops. Okay, so that's Posheya.
Gotta put it one way.
What? Gotta put it number 1. Okay. So he is a Posheya. You're a Nitka Posheya. Okay? So he's a Posheya. Here he is. She's an Odabamasik. And this is a bor that was created through Peshiya. So he's going to be chayav on either thing that happens to guy number 2. Okay, now guy number 2.
You have to go flying over.
I don't know. Whoa. Okay, I don't know. Okay, anyway. Guy number 2, okay, he is an anus. Okay? He tripped over guy number 1. Okay, that's not his fault.
So nitkal means over, why is he not nitkal?
He is a nitkal, but normal nitkal b'shem means when you trip on your own 2 feet. Okay? Tripping over somebody, you're an anus. Okay, so he's an anus. So this is a bor, is also made by honest. Everything is made by honest. Okay? It starts off that he's an honest and he should try to be pata. But then he had a chance to get up. So his initial, the fall was by honest. But then after 1 minute time, it's hayalo la'amod, and he's a posheya. So now he's responsible for somebody who trips on him. But should he have also removed this bor? This bor was created by us, so he's not liable for it. Now, what are you supposed to say? But he had a minute. What should he have done in that minute? He should have picked it up, gathered it up. So what we're going to assume that once you have a broken picture, you're mafkir it. Okay, remember mafkir nizakov?
So we assume that you mafkid, or
Yes, we assume you're mafkid. Onus. So you do never have to pick up your pieces. I did not make this board. This board got made by honest. And after that, I stopped being responsible. I was mafkiret. So I am liable for myself, but I'm not liable for my board. Okay? So the first guy, everything was b'pshia, is liable for himself and his board. The second guy is liable for himself because he should have stood up. Initially, it was all ba'anos. But then he becomes liable for himself for not standing up, but he does not become liable for the board because he was mafkir that and he didn't have to.
Again, so
why was the first
actually
one?
have to say I'm mafkir.
No, we presume. We presume.
Why was the first one not mafkir for his?
He might have been, but he made it b'pshia. You made a board b'pshia. It doesn't matter if you continue owning it or not. It's like digging a well in Rishus Rabbi. Okay, but if you didn't make the board, you're only liable for not cleaning it up if you continue to own it.
What happened to the warning?
What do you mean?
What if number two?
Could have warned about this?
Yeah,
It's not his responsibility to warn about it. He didn't make it. He didn't make it. He didn't make the hazard, and he wasn't supposed to clean up the hazard.
So number three comes along
and gets damaged on this. Nobody's responsible for it.
Yeah, but why should people? The number three is still out then.
I understand that happens sometimes. You get damaged and nobody has the liability. Okay, that's the explanation. Yes.
So according to this is Rashi's explanation. So, but it still fits in with the Kamma. That the first one is chayav bein niske gufo or mamono, right?
Right.
In other words, he's chayav for everything about number two.
Right.
Okay, so either way, it still fits in.
Right. Yeah, we're good. Okay, there's no problem. Rashi has a good read of the Kamma.
No, but Rashi
And
doesn't tell us what's the same law.
No. Don't start worrying about the other read. Okay, we're not going to confuse people. Okay, let's keep on going. So the Gemara says like this. Okay. Meisveil after Kulan Chayavin. We have a breita that says about this case. Kulan Chayavin al Niske Gufan, P'turin al Niske Mamonam. All the people, 1 through 3, are all liable for the damage their body does, and they're all exempt for the damage that their property does. Okay, we're going to consistently read this. It's talking about, well, we're not going to read it consistently. Okay, it's about the damage that their body is doing, the damage that their property is doing. Okay, so you see, everybody is exempt on their property. My love of filu rishon, doesn't it mean even guy 1 is exempt for his property? Okay, well, the bar rishon.
So everybody except for you.
Everybody except for number 1. Not kulam ktani. It says everybody. Okay, there aren't so many people here. Okay, there's 1, 2, and 3. So everybody presumably means everybody. So the Gemara says, Amar Avad Bar Abba. Kulan hanizikin. It means everybody who was damaged. Okay, not the first guy. The first guy is the big damager, but all the guys who tripped over him, they're all exempt for what their property did. Okay, everybody that follows number 1, that trips as a result of number 1, they're all exempt. The Gemara still isn't happy. Hi, my, what are you talking about? Everybody, even number 1, I need to tiny kulam. It says kulam.
So it's the same question.
It's the same question, except there's just more words in saying it. But if it's everybody except number 1, my kulam, listening hanizikin, say those that were damaged are exempt for their property. Okay, by saying kulam, the Gemara's point here is not just that the word kulam means everybody, but that it should have chosen a better word. It could have said those that were damaged are exempt for their property. Okay, Ella, so we got a problem now. This is a very nice explanation. We understand exactly what Rava is saying, but it doesn't fit with a breita that says everybody is exempt for the damage their property does. Elamar Rava, rather Rava says, Rishon Chayav Bein B'Nizkei Gufo D'Sheni. So Rava changes his claim because of the breita. Rishon Chayav Bein B'Nizkei Gufo D'Sheni, Bein B'Nizkei Mamono D'Sheni. V'Sheni Chayav B'Nizkei Shlishi, B'Nizkei Gufo, Avalo B'Nizkei Mamono. So here, notice it spells out Niske Gufo Disheni, Niske Mamono Disheni. So now we are switching gears and talking about the thing being damaged, not the thing doing the damage. Okay, so let's read this again. Rishon, where were we? Chayav Bein B'Niske Gufo Disheni, Bein B'Niske Mamono. Okay, whether he, the person, damages guy's number 1 person or damages guy's number 1's property, he's chayav. Why? Because only an Adam Hamazik is chayav by damaging property. A boor that damages property is exempt. Everybody remembers that? Yeah. So the Rishon is chayav for this because the Rishon is an Adam Hamazik. Okay, so he's chayav whether he damages a person's person or property. And the second guy, here's number 3, who trips over guy number 2. I don't know why I'm doing it like that. Anyway, the second guy is chayav. Where were we? Sheni chayav b'niskei shlish, b'niskei gufo, v'lo b'niskei mamono. It's chayav only on this guy's person, but not. Here's this guy's property. Okay. But not on this guy's property. Okay?
I'm sorry.
What's the reason? What we are saying is a completely different statement we're making now. The first guy is an Adam Hamazik, and chayav if he damages this guy or this guy's property. The second guy is a boor. And as a boor, he's chayav only if the person gets damaged on him, but not if the person's property gets damaged on him. Now, what is the difference? Why? Here's the question we were asking. You're stationary, somebody trips over you. Are you an Adam Hamazik or are you a boor? And basically we're saying it differs between the first guy and the second guy. The first guy's an Adam Hamazik, the second guy is a boor. What's the difference? And the basic difference is, okay, the degree of negligence, all right? And I think that the only way to explain this is what I said before, because why should negligence determine what category you're in? But what negligence determines is agency, okay? So if I tripped and let's say I was posheya in my tripping, okay? Or even if I wasn't posheya, I certainly was close to being posheya, okay? And then I could have warned, or all those things. So I certainly have have a certain degree of pshia here, more than the guy behind me. I mean, the guy behind me maybe could have also warned, but he certainly had a lot less negligence in tripping over me. He was much more of an honest, okay? So because I have more pshia, it's more considered to be, I would frame this, Rashi doesn't spell this out, but I would frame this as more like my act. There's more agency, right? I've more chosen to be here, and therefore it's like I'm a mazik on the people that come behind me. It's like I'm acting. Whereas there, you just tripped and you're completely blameless. Now, you certainly need a degree of negligence. You wouldn't be chayiv on board if you remained honest, right? Everybody get that? If he tripped and he had no opportunity to warn number 3, he'd be putter, right? To be chayiv for board, you need pshia. So we are assuming
he could have warned him.
They could have warned him. But even though he could have warned him, okay, and there's a degree of negligence, it's not enough negligence to make it. He still tripped. It started as an accident. He could have warned. Maybe he couldn't have gotten up. Maybe he only could have warned. It's not enough to view it as though he is like actively staying there and doing something to the other guy. He just is negligent a little bit more in the abstract. So he has negligence for the boor. But this guy, who should have tripped in the first place, this guy is actually, and could have warned, he's considered to more have agency and more be an Adam Hamazik. Okay? So they all have negligence, or they wouldn't be chayiv. But this guy that is more to blame for the initial tripping, he's an Adam Hamazik, and this guy who is just a boor. Yes.
Okay, that's exactly what this guy is a boor.
That's what Rashi says it explicitly.
Okay.
You want to see Rashi saying it? We can read the words in
Rashi.
Rashi.
The second guy's body acts as a boor, so he's Pater B'Kelim.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll read the key line in Rashi. Rashi says like this. So first of all, when Rashi is explaining the previous Gemara, there was an Adam Hamazik. If you look down 6 lines in the wide lines of Rashi, this was the earlier interpretation of Rashi. Rashi says, the beginning, like 4 words in, Rashi says, "The begufo lo mishavinam leidin bor." Okay, we wouldn't turn a person's body into a boar, but in this interpretation of the Gemara, Rashi says, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 lines down, the line starts with the word la'amod. Did people see that word? This is havele la'amod. The first guy should have stood. Aval sheni afilu hayel la'amod. Although the second guy should have stood, because if he didn't have to stand, he wouldn't have any pia. He'd be completely exempt. Lo mechayev kulei hay karishon. He's not as liable as the first guy. Rishon have a poshet fein. The first guy was more negligent. He tripped in the first place. Hilkach Rishon vade have a mazik. The first guy's an Adam Hamazik. The Sheni, the second guy, Mistaye, it's sufficient. Imagine legufei boar. If you define his body as a boar, the Chayvo niske gufo shashlisha below niske mamono. So Rashi says that he had more negligence. He's an Adam Hamazik. He had less negligence. He's a boar. But the question is like, what does that mean? Like, who cares? Negligence or not negligence? You're one or the other. And I would say no. If you tripped and fell and you're passive and somebody trips over you, to make you into an Adam Hamazik, we have to define that you're being present as an act of being present, as agency. Okay? And therefore, with more negligence, it's like you're doing an act of damaging the guy. You're staying there. Here, you're not seen as much as doing an act, and therefore you're a bore and not an Adam Hamazik.
So let me just then take this one step down. So the first guy's bore, right? So
First guy is an Adam Hamazik.
no, I'm saying the first guy's stuff that broke is now a bore.
We're going to get to that.
Okay, so that's
Okay.
what I was going to ask.
Yeah, right. That would be Mafkin Azak of Achat Pshia Sonis or Pshia or whatever, and that would have the relevant laws.
And then
Okay.
but the second guy's stuff.
The second guy presumably be Mafkin Azak of Achat Pshia Sonis, and he'd be Pater.
Okay,
Okay, let's.
anything, right? So the second guy's bore
Correct.
damages anything. Like the second guy's bore damages the
Correct.
third guy's body,
Correct.
he'd be completely putter.
Yeah, if it's Mafkin Azak of Achat Pshia
But
Sonis.
the first
correct.
guy's bore, the
Oh,
is
if Nitko's Poshem,
right,
which
he's
is what
got
presumably
doesn't
we're
damage the first
assuming.
guy's body.
Presumably. Okay, but let's take a look at what the Gemara says. Okay. Okay, now. My time at Avalate Bor. Now, because this the Lomatzina Bor Shechir Bar Takelis. Okay, his body is exempt on this guy's vessels because he's a bor, and bor is exempt on Kalim. Okay, now, so the Gemara says 1 minute. Can you say a person is a bor? So remember the debate of Rabbi
You say a person's a
Shmuel.
bore for sure.
So yeah, right. Ain't bor, whatever. Fine. So if a person so can a person be a bor? So remember, there's a debate of Rabbi and Shmuel. If you own, is a bor only something that you don't own? Right? Remember, they had the Avda Sikina Masal, your knapsack, and just Rav, if you still own it. For Rav, it's a shore. Okay? So if for Rav, you can't be a bor unless it's ownerless, then you can never be a bor. Okay? You have to need something to, right? A bor starts as something that's hefker. So Hani Shmuel Damar Kol Takal a boru. From Shmuel it says that any hazard is a bor, a person can be a bor. El Rav Damar Afgrei Ini Lo. Only if you're mafkir something, it's a bor. Michael and Amar. What can you say? Okay, how can you say that the person is a bor? All right. The Gemara says no. Fine. Go back to what we were saying before. Go back to the idea that the earlier interpretation, which was, I like this one too, gets the question of a person is a bor. Go back to the earlier interpretation, okay, which is that you are basically a what was it? Everybody maybe is an Adam Hamazik or whatever, and the difference is what's the status of the stuff that fell. This is Mafkir Nizak of Lacha Nefilas Pshia, and this is Mafkir Nizak of Lacha Nefilas Aretz. Okay, if that's true, but what do you do about the fact that the Breita says everybody is exempt for the damage that their objects do? Okay, and this guy we said is liable for the damage that the objects do. You are bothered by the Breita that says Kulan Chayavin, that they're all obligated on what their body does. Actually, they should have said Kulam Turin, and they're all exempt on what their property does. So Targum Ravana Bar Yomi coming to Ravina, Shehusku Kalim Bekalim. When we say they're all exempt on what their property does and they're high for what they do, is we're talking only about when they're damaging vessels. So okay, so this guy is
You have to go off the arrows again.
what?
You have to go off the arrows again.
I guess so. This guy is okay. So everybody is essentially a case of Hayalo Lamod. So they're all, let's say, an Adam Hamazik. So everybody is liable for if the other guy's vessels break on them because they all should have stood up, and they're all Adam Hamazik.
And they're all liable for
and
other
they're all liable for hurting the person on them. But they're all exempt if their vessels break the other guy's vessels because their vessels are a bor, and a bor is pater b'kelim. Of course, it's a very boring read of the Breita. Of course, their vessels are a bor, and a bor is pater
Boring, I
b'kelim.
like that.
What? Boring? I didn't mean that. Anyway, but I'm serious. It's like you're just telling me a standard halacha. Oh, by the way, of course, whether an Adam is a bor or an Adam Hamazik, that's an interesting question. The fact that their broken pot is at most a bor, and they're exempt because it's kalim bekalim, bor bekalim, of course that's true. But anyway, that's what we're reading it, okay?
So what did we learn?
So we don't learn anything. Maybe we learned that, I don't know, we learned that.
We learned that you didn't.
We learned that Hayal Olamo. Okay, maybe we learned that a person who falls and his Hayal Olamo is an Adam Hamazik. Okay.
But if he didn't, then
But
maybe
the earlier explanation was really interesting because it said whether you're an automatic or a boor might depend on your degree of negligence.
But if he didn't have enough time, then he'd be putter. Is that what we're saying now?
If he didn't have enough time, well, certainly these guys would be putter. This guy, we haven't really figured out whether it calls poche or not. Right. Okay, so that's basically it. What we didn't actually explain was how the other reed, which was talking whatever, dealt with why kulan's paturin by the kalim. Because the other reed basically was assuming, the other reed was all about, right? Remember the other reed was, are you chayav for this, or are you chayav for this and not for that, right? Because here you're an adam and here you're a boar. So in that case, we were assuming that nitko was onus. The whole problem was hayalola mode, okay, and that was going on. But because nitko was onus, everybody was not responsible for the boar that they created for their vessels, because it was mafkin and zakavlach and if he was onus. So that was that previous read of the Breita. They're all liable for what their body does. Their body is either a boar or an adam amazik based on degree of negligence. Like remember that read that this was an adam and this was a boar. Based on degree of negligence, they're all high for what their body does. They're all putter for what their vessels do because it was mafkin and zakavlach and if he was onus. That was how that read worked. This final read is much less interesting in terms of why you're putter on the vessels. But again, the really interesting question is, on the one hand, it's a simple application of mafkin and zakavlach and if he was onus. Are you a poshea? Are you hayalolamo? No new ideas. The really interesting new idea that was introduced is, are you an adam amazik or boar when you could have gotten up? And Rashi says that might depend on your degree of negligence. Okay, last line in the Gemara. Okay. Amar imachmas rishon naflu kulan naflu rishon chayv niski kulam. If they fell because of the first guy, he's liable. And again, the Gemara is reading this not that the second and third were not negligent, but it's still the same scenario. 1, 2 falls over 1, 3 over 2, etc. It's the Gemara. That would have been an interesting scenario. You fell over the guy in front of you, but he didn't have a chance to stand. It was all the first guy's fault, and the first guy pays for everybody. The Gemara doesn't read it like that. The Gemara reads it that they all fell over the first guy. Okay, so the Gemara says, how did they fall? He was sort of, spread across the road, like basically Rashi says, like a carcass, okay? So his whole body, or Rashi says maybe something he was carrying, his whole body was spread along the width of the road, so everybody tripped over the first guy. It's like a jackknife tractor. Okay, there you go. Now, Ravina Amar kechutra desamusa, like the staff of a blind person. Now, what is the difference? Right? Rashi says it just sounds like two colorful illustrations. Tosfos has a brilliant read. Tosfos says, here it is. I know that was really good. Those were really good pictures, weren't they?
Especially the colors.
Tosfos said, anyway, yeah, the colors was helpful, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. Tosfos says you're at an angle, and because you're at an angle, this is guy number 1.
No, which explanation?
The second one, the guy who's like the staff of a blind person. Okay, the second angle. This is guy number 1. Guy number 2 comes along, and he trips over guy number 1. Okay, so guy number 3, who's walking here, right? He says, "Oh, that guy must have tripped over something way in front." So he doesn't realize at this stage, right?
It's all across.
This is like he's here and he says, "I don't have to be careful yet. Whatever that guy tripped over is like 2 feet ahead of me." Okay, and he doesn't realize that it's at an angle. So the reason what this is saying is that if the guy was completely horizontal, then it's not guy number 1's fault. You should have seen guy number 2 that had fallen down. Don't blame me for tripping over me. You saw guy number 2 was on the ground. But if he's at an angle, even though I saw guy number 2 on the ground, I didn't realize that the hazard was closer to me than it was to him. Okay, so that's how come everybody could be falling over me. But I can't say to you, look, you saw the other guy on the ground, you should have been careful. Because if I was at an angle, you didn't know to be careful earlier on.
I can say partly depends on which way they fell. If they fell face first,
I'm sure that could happen. We will end with this.
Doesn't Kamma use the